Hey guys, welcome to today's video. In this video, let's create kind of a funny, wacky mouse character just for fun. All right, so to get started, let's start with the head of the character. And as I usually like to do, I go to Lightbox and I just grab usually this sphere 128, which is a Dynamesh, right? So if you double click on that, if you are relatively new to ZBrush, you will see Dynamesh is highlighted or activated. And for anyone who is following these tutorials, you are welcome to obviously use your own UI, or you can just grab this UI on my community tab. So I offer that there if you are interested in having, the buttons to be placed in exactly the same manner to follow the tutorial. All right, so to get started, let's do this. Let's figure out what portion of the head we could start with. I think the mouth would be a great starting point. So I'm just going to grab the sphere here, and I'm going to click on Move, go to Settings, and in here, let's just use something like the bend curve, for example. And these yellow lines right here represent the resolution. So I can just dial this down to maybe, let's do 3. And initially what I want to do is create kind of like a smile. So I'm just going to make sure that my active symmetry is turned on, which is going to be this green one. And you can see it says symmetrical. 0 equals no, 1 equals yes, and the current setting is 0. So if we drag this to 1, obviously that's going to activate our symmetry. And now if I start pulling on one of these, you can see it's actually pulling on the other, right? And if I bring this down, I can almost start creating something that looks like a smile. I'm going to be careful not to pinch the middle and just pull this, something like this I think is pretty good. And that's going to be kind of the starting point of my character. All right, I'm going to press on this little gear and say accept. All right. Now how do we create the indentation of the mouth if we wanted to put in, maybe like a tongue and a few teeth, right? This is going to be a wacky, crazy character. So I wouldn't mind having super exaggerated elements of this character. And to get that opening going, I think we should use Booleans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, make 2 of them, right? And I'm going to make the other one smaller. And obviously I can't see the other one. It just went inside of the other one, right? So if I do transparency, I could see it a little bit better, right? So I'm just going to make 2 of them. And this portion here is going to be kind of the mouth pocket, right? So obviously I need to pull it out, right? And now I can jump out of the transparency mode and I can see what that looks like. If I'm happy with the position of it, which I think I am, let's preview this. How do we preview the live Booleans here in ZBrush? Well, I can activate this little button right here. And as long as your live Boolean button is turned on, it's going to give you a preview. And the cool thing about this is that you can drag this around and you can see how it's actually changing the shape in real time, right? So it's live Booleans doing their magic. So I think something like this will work. The only thing I'm kind of hesitant about is that it does create super sharp edges. And, if I'm making a mouth, I would love this to be a little more beveled or more round instead of so sharp, right? So how do I deal with that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit to this, right? I'm going to go to my, let's go to our subtools. And is it under subtools or geometry? I forget. It's under subtools. So you go to Boolean, and in here there's a button called Make Boolean Mesh. I'm going to click on that. Nothing happened with this tool, but you see another tool was created. And this one has a U mesh in front of it. So if I click on that, now you can see this has actually been baked in, which means if I turn this on and off, it's not going to affect anything, right? Because this is, these two have been merged together, right? Very cool. All right, so let's think of some crazy creative way to create thickness on this thin line, right? So let me think about this. We can always inflate it, but then when we begin to inflate, it's going to create the thickness that I like, but then it's doing this strange, pattern, which is probably going to be difficult to clean up. Let's not do that. Let's reduce the topology of this. So if I turn on my polyframe, you can see this is what it currently looks like. Let me go to geometry, go to Z remesher, and in here I don't really need adapt. This is such a simple shape, right? Adapt just means add more edges to keep the form, but usually if you're doing something simple, adapt is not, necessary, right? This is symmetrical, so I'm going to press X to activate my active symmetry. And the target poly count, I need something low. I'm going to go to 1. And keep groups, yes, why not? Let's keep this green and red poly groups. That's fine. And let's just do Z remesh and see what that gives us. All right, it's going to give us really clean topology. Gotta love Z remesher, man. It's so cool. And then, of course, we can always go half if we wanted to. If you wanted it lower, you could do that. I think that's not necessary. I'm going to go with this. And you can see it's going to give you 1700 points or, almost 1700 polygons. So you see the difference for anyone who's new, the difference between points and polygons are the squares, right? And then points are the actual verts. So the reason there's a difference between these two is because apparently there's 2 triangles, right? And somewhere in this mesh that are being used, I think right there. So that's what that number is. That's why sometimes these are different, but we don't really care about that right now. Just pointing that out. Let's see. So now what I would like to do is, let's just do the trick, right? I'm going to inflate this. And as I inflate this, check this out. You can see how, let me turn this off. You can see how I'm creating this nice bevel, right? And maybe that's going to give me what I want, which is going to be something like that. If I wanted to smooth this out further, I can do Control D. And now it's going to give me this really nice round cartoony lip versus something super, super sharp. And I think this is what I want, right? So I'm going to go with this. Very cool. Now, since I subdivided that, again, I'm not really paying any attention to topology because as you can see, we can Z remesh this at any point. So we can keep jumping back and forth between high res and low res and just have fun, right? So I'm going to delete lower. I don't really care about keeping lower. And now what I'm going to do is let's create the next component of our head. And that's going to be, somewhere where we can add the eyes, right? So I'm going to go to Subtools. Let's do Insert. And let's drop in another sphere. Okay. Grab my move. Let's put it into position. And let's just make it, I guess, oops, just a little bit larger so we can have some room for a couple eyes, right? And I do want to make it, somewhere in the center and probably pushed back more, right? Let's not even worry about this whole section here. Let's just kind of pay attention to this. And essentially what I want to do is create a place for a nose too. And I know my nose is going to be round, right, for a little cute mouse. So let me duplicate this sphere and I'll pull this forward. And I'm literally building this like almost like an engineer. Instead of sculpting it like a wild man, right? I'm just doing it piece by piece, almost like a building, like a structure or something. A lot of times I like to do that. It's a little closer to modeling like in Maya or some other application. And it's just a different style, but it's, it gives you essentially all the elements for a base mesh. I guess that would be a good way to put it. All right, so let's get the nose in position. Something like that is pretty good, right? That's going to be our nose for our cute little mouse. And if we wanted to add a couple nostrils, you can always rename these too. I usually don't because I'm super lazy, but you could just say rename and say, nose. Another reason I don't usually is because I always, jump between merging, splitting, dynameshing, Z remeshing, whatever. So, I usually name these at the end, but I think the nose probably might stay separate. So I'm going to do Control D to subdivide it. And now let's just add a couple nostrils. How do we do that? Well, we could just use the inflate brush, turn our active symmetry on. Holding S, you can control the size of your brush, or you can do it right here. And let's just switch it to sub, and let's just push this in right here. And as you start doing this, just go in circles and decide, you know, how deep you want the nostrils to be. You can also do just a little bit and just press 1 to double up. You could do that. And you can see how that's going to give you, you know, something that looks a lot like a cartoon nose, which is pretty cool. Holding down the Alt key, I can select the head. And again, I know it looks terrible from the side and the back and all that. I'm just kind of focusing on the front first. And this is going to be my head mesh. Let me grab my move. I'm going to make it kind of large. Press X. And what I'm going to do next is let's just kind of maybe pull this down a little more, right? And if we wanted to, we can just pull this in, or probably not too much, right? I do want to have room for those eye sockets. So we can always readjust this at any moment. But essentially, I want those eyes probably right about now. All right, so to get that going, let's switch this to Dynamesh. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I turn my polyframe on, you can see I have this really nice topology, but it's too nice, right? I want something more high res and messy. So think of Dynamesh as literally clay mode. That's what that is. So let's go into clay mode or Dynamesh. I'm gonna click on this and let me just give myself 256, turn Dynamesh on. That's gonna give me about 300,000 points. You can see that it retained its kind of a square grid looking form. So you can always polish this, do like a global polish, and that'll get rid of it. You can also hold down the Shift key and clean it that way. Great, let's grab the inflate, make our brush just a bit larger. Again, make sure active symmetry is on. Hold down the Alt key, or no, I guess you don't have to, I'm in sub mode. And let's just start creating openings for the eyes. So, you know, we can decide if we want to keep them round. Maybe that would be a little easier to manage, right? And see, it's gonna start eventually create weirdness sometimes. Don't worry, just do Control and drag and re-Dynamesh. Hold on the Shift key and just smooth this out, and just do it a couple times if necessary. That will usually fix any issues. If I wanted to further control this, I can just use my move brush and just kind of sculpt it into something interesting. You know, we can decide again if we want to keep it perfectly round or not. I don't think so. I actually kind of like this shape of the eyes getting pulled in. Maybe add a little more emotion, right? If I wanted to add some brows to this, even though he's cartoony, I can do inflate. And let's just kind of bubble up. Let's go to add, and let's just bubble up this whole section here. And give him a little more volume up here. That's going to give us almost like the brow look, right? And we can even do just a little here too, just a little bit. And if this starts to get kind of wobbly, hold on the Shift key, just smooth this out. That should work, right? Keep it nice and smooth. All right, and same thing here. You can see I'm starting to get kind of a wobbly situation there. I'm gonna hold on the Shift key and smooth this out. Very nice. Now let's drop a couple eyes. To do that, I'm gonna do Insert, drop another sphere, and you can control the position of these, right? You can put them on the bottom or the top, wherever you want, but I'm gonna move them up and put it into position. Let's scale this down a little more and just get them, you know, somewhere there where they make sense. And now I did adjust the shape of the sockets, so I could probably adjust the shape of the eyes if I wanted to as well. Unless you want to keep them round, like if you are going to turn this into a game character or animated character, you're obviously going to want to rotate the eyes. So that's super important, right? This is these little decisions are really important. You have to decide what type of character are you building. Are you just building something high res for your portfolio where you can just poly paint it, throw it into Blender and render it, and just have like a kick-ass rendering? Or are you making like an actual you know, animated game character where things need to make sense, right? The eyes need to rotate, certain elements have to be certain resolution. So all of those are really good decisions, right? For me personally, I'm still deciding. I don't know how far I want to take this. Maybe I'll keep it round for now. Let's do this. Let's duplicate this and flip it over. Now we have two of them, right? I don't really want to deal too much with this. Let's just add some kind of a simple pupil to this. I don't really want to get too complex. Let's just do something as simple as inserting a cylinder. And I'm going to turn this into a pupil. Holding down the Shift key, I can rotate this snap at 90 degrees. Let's move it forward, make it a little smaller, and, you know, size it as we wish. And of course, just put it kind of in position of where maybe it could be like towards the nose a little bit to make it cute. Give it a little more thickness and just plop it right in, right? So that's one way of doing it. If you wanted to zoom in closer to this shape specifically, just press F, and that's gonna kind of focus in. I can even rotate this just for the sake of this video, so it looks a little bit nicer, like it's hugging the surface. All right. If you wanted to, we can do Control D to make it a little smoother, and I think that works for what this is, right? And now I want two of them. I'm gonna duplicate it. I could duplicate it and mirror it. That's one way of doing it, right? And it's saying I have subdivision levels. So I would have to go to Geometry, delete lower, then flip it, and now I have two of them. That's one way of doing it. Let's see, so I probably don't need these to be separate. Let's just merge them together. I'm gonna go to Merge, Merge Down, and now I have these pupils here. I don't really want to deal with them. All right, so now let's see, what can we do next? We can work on our teeth, or maybe add some kind of a fun ear, right? And we can also decide what's going on here. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another sphere to this, okay? And let me jump out of perspective mode, and let me just literally just fill up this whole section. Something like this, right? So it's like there's more stuff going on, and I can also make it more like this, so it's not, I'm just literally just filling up this whole space, okay? And what I'm gonna do is make it just a little bit smaller. Oops. Let me make this a little bit smaller. I wanna make sure it's not poking in the front here. And now let me take this shape, and this shape, and just merge them all together, right? I don't need them to be all separate. So same thing, I'm gonna go to, let's do 256 to match our other setting, do Dynamesh on this one. We can polish it just so it doesn't have that facety look. And now let me find the head, right, which is right here, and I can bring it down just so I know where that is. Okay, so these two together. Let me find the mouth. That's all the way on top. I'm gonna bring this down as well. And now I'm gonna take all three of these and just merge it. I'm gonna go to, let's see, I'm gonna go to merge, right? I'm gonna do merge down again. Now they're all together on one layer, but they're still separate, right? If I turn my polyframe on, you can see they're separate polygroups, right? So I don't need that. I'm gonna do Control drag to seal them, and you can see how they're like sealing together, right? Which is cool. Now holding down the Shift key, I can just go through and start smoothing this a lot, right? And that's going to give me something that looks more like one piece. And let's do Control and drag, redynamesh, and we could do it a couple times to just speed this up. And that's one way of doing it. Now, if you wanted to speed up the power of this, there's in Lightbox under brushes, if you go to smooth folder, there is something called smooth stronger. So we could try that, right? Let's double click on that and say okay. And that's going to, if you start kind of attempt to smooth this, is going to smooth it stronger. It's going to go faster. And that is great if you have something, you know, a little bit higher res, right? Another way of doing it obviously would be to downsize it using zRemesher and just using normal smooth to smooth this out and then subdivide it. So many different ways of doing things in ZBrush. I can also solo this if I wanted to see something maybe a little bit better. And, you know, that totally works, right? And then again, this is like super high res. Let me demonstrate the other one. The other one is obviously, again, you just take this and you can go to geometry, zero measure. Let's turn adapt off. And I'm gonna keep it like on 1 again. And I don't really need poly groups. And I'm just gonna do active symmetry and just do zero mesh. All right, that's gonna really downsize the whole thing a lot, right? And you know, if you do something like this, maybe this is a little too dramatic, but you can see if I hold on the shift key and try to smooth this out, it's gonna smooth it out way faster. And to be honest with you, if you do something like this, you probably don't want to keep this smooth stronger, right? I almost probably want to switch it back, which I can just go to brushes, press S, and just choose my normal smooth and just say okay. And that's gonna put the normal one back if I hold on the shift key. And you can also control the intensity of your smooth brush, right? If I go to like 30 and start to smoothing out, it's a little more gradual, so it's not so intense. But this is gonna give you a better merging or better connection between the shapes. And when something is so low resolution, this is also a good time to make huge adjustments, right? Because it's so easy. So for example, you know, if I wanted to make this even more dramatic, you know, I could do that, right? I can bring these cheeks up and we can decide, you know, if we want to adjust any of this here. It's very easy, right? We can pull this back, decide what the back of the character looks like as far as the head goes. You know, try to visualize like a neck here, right? A lot of fun. Totally just playing. So this looks a lot like, I think that makes sense for as far as the side, the back, the top, you know, just make sure it makes sense from all the angles, right? And I kind of like that. I think it's good. Once you are happy with it, same thing. Let's do Control D to subdivide it a bunch of times until it's smooth. Subdivision level 4 seems to be pretty good. And now what I want to do is I want to introduce some ears to this guy, right? How do we do that? So same thing, I'm not concerned about topology at all. So let me just delete lower. And to do the ears, I'm gonna go to Subtool. Let's do Insert. Let's drop in a cylinder. Holding on the Shift key, I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees. And let me get it into position, make it just a little bit larger. And you know, these are gonna be the ears, right? Go into a side view, let's make them somewhat skinny. And a few things, right? I don't want to keep the ear so boring. I want to keep it a little more interesting. And for that, let's just kind of bend the top of the ear. Just create something a little more unique. So to do this, I'm going to do Control D a few times. And by a few, I think I did 3 or level 4, right? Just get rid of that facety look. And now I'm going to go to, let me go to 256 and turn it to Dynamesh. And I'm going to say no. I don't need the subdivision levels. All right, how do I create the bend in here? I can go to bend curve, right? And let's just add a little more resolution. And if your line is not running, you know, vertically, right? You can use the blue one to move it around. So you can do it this way. You have full control, but make it vertical. And now if you go in the side view, you can start creating like a bend. Now I'm bending it on the bottom and the top. I don't want that. How do I control that? Well, that's going to be symmetry. So right, I want to turn the symmetry off, right? And that's going to just bend the top. And now I can create kind of a cool bend up here for the ear. I'm just kind of folding the top of it. If I want to have more resolution here, remember I can just add more dots and just do like a softer bend, right? So that's pretty cool. You can see what that looks like. I think it's a way more interesting than just a flat, you know, flat shape, right? Let's go to gear. Let's do accept. And now what I could do is I can take this ear and turn it kind of like this. And let's just kind of get it more into a good position. So I'm not in the perspective view. Keep in mind, I'm in the flat view, and I can hold on the shift key and just snap, right? So I'm perfectly straight. Now if I go to my move, make it somewhat large, I can start slowly. If you keep it large, it's going to give you really nice bends. You know, if you keep it small, it's going to start creating strange wobbly surfaces, right? So you want to make it really large. And using this large brush, you can start adjusting the ear to be something more interesting. So maybe, you know, there's like a bend here, right, for the mouse. And then, you know, there's like a shape like this, and then maybe, you know, we can decide how it goes in here, if it's you know, like this or more like this. I think it should go under behind the cheek, right? So it's a little, you know, usually mice have kind of large ears. So, and I don't mind having it super, you know, too large, right? So I think that looks pretty cute. And now if I wanted to, I can even bend it back, right? I can grab the rotate. And you know what, before I bend it, I also wouldn't mind having a little, like a cartoony cut in the ear. How do I get that going? Well, I can do Control Shift, go into my quick pick, grab something like the, let's do the knife curve. And if you go, hold on the Control Shift, you could drag out this line, hold on the space bar to move it around. Then release the space bar, and then release the shift. Holding down the Control key, you can still do this. And then if you tap Alt key really fast twice, that's going to give you this sharp angle, and then you can do a cut. And that's essentially what I was going for, like a little cut like this, right? And I can even do one here too. Just as a cute little touch. And now to rotate the ear, I'm going to go to the top view. Grab my, I can move or rotate, let's go to rotate. And from here, let's unlock this, reset this, lock this back up. Let's just literally just turn this. Now I'm turning it from the center being the pivot. If I wanted to change the pivot, I can unlock this, change my pivot, put it here, lock this back up, and now I'm pivoting from here, right? And maybe I can find a little better spot for it. So I think something like this makes sense, right? I like that. Okay, very cool. So that's pretty much our ear. The only other thing that I'm thinking is that maybe if I make my brush a little bit larger, I can also indent it and make it more like this, right? So there's like, this whole area is kind of going back. Again, just having fun, right? Adding something more organic versus someone looking at it and saying, oh, you know, they did that from a cylinder, you know? So this already looks, in my opinion, pretty interesting. We don't have to, you know, deal with like the ear hole or anything, but I think something like that is pretty cool. Okay, cool. So now how do we infuse this shape into the head, right? Same way, right? We can just merge them together and flip it over. So let me do that now. I'm gonna go Subtools. Might as well make it duplicate now. I can duplicate this and then flip it over and then merge them, or I can just mirror it and do mirror and weld, and that's the same thing. Essentially, it skipped the step of merging the two layers, but it you know, it mirrored them across. Very nice. Now to get these going, to merge these together, I'm going to grab the head and turn it into Dynamesh, and I'm going to merge this down, right? So now both of these are in the same layer at 256 resolution in Dynamesh mode, which means I could do Control and drag to again fuse them together. You can see how they're fused together, right? And now if I hold down the Shift key, I can just start smoothing this out and really kind of merging them into, you know, really fusing them a lot, right? And then remember, you can switch the brush if you want to make it stronger or whatever. But I think something like that looks really nice, right? You could look how, you could see how it feels like the ear is growing from the head of the character. Really cool. I think I'm liking this. We can always make any, you know, additional adjustments using the move brush if we wanted to. It's up to you. You know, you just have to be careful not to break the shape or make it wobbly. If you want this to be a little more sharp, you can always turn AccuCurve on, and that's gonna start doing like a little more of a sharp effect, you know, just again, be mindful about how you're using that, because it's pretty easy to go from something smooth and clean to terrible and ugly. I wouldn't mind dropping in a little tongue. So I'm just going to insert another sphere. Let me get it into position, and let's just do something as simple as this, right? And then I'm just going to grab the inflate brush, turn my X active symmetry on, and just run it across, make my brush somewhat large, maybe add a little more intensity, and just do some, oops, that's way too much. Let me go to like 10. And just do something like this, just create something that looks a lot like a tongue, or like a cartoony tongue, very, very quickly, right? I'm gonna continue to work in 256 mode, turn it into Dynamesh, re-Dynamesh, polish, hold on the shift key, smooth this out, grab my scale, let's just scale this down. Now when you're scaling it down, you usually probably want to jump out of the symmetry mode, because that's going to mess you up usually. So let's do something like that. And you know what? If you wanted to create a little bend, we can make this a little bit longer. Go to bend curve, really reduce our res a lot, and just do like a little bend. Why not, right? So very quickly you can create fun shapes. And I'm gonna accept that. I like that. And now I can just put it in position, and I can decide if I want him like sticking his tongue out. You know, I could, if I wanted to, I could do something like this, make it longer and just do like a crazy silly thing, or you know, maybe the tongue is like inside the mouth more, and then the teeth are going to be over that, right? Now I'm looking at it, it definitely, for some reason for me, doesn't look like it's centered. So I need to find where the center is. How do I find where the center is if I accidentally mess this up? Is there a way to center this? And there is. So what you could do is you can go to geometry, and then you go to position. And in position, this is going to be, I think, X, right? Is this our X? Let's move it. Yeah, it's X. So if I switch this to 0, I can manually put it in the center, and then what I can do is I can click on this button here to reposition my pivot, unlock it, reset my pivot, right? So now it's perfect, and now I can just make it, maybe make it a little bit wider. Could do that. Let's go into perspective view. We can see what that looks like. It looks like the mouth needs to be pushed more in, I think. Also, I'm going to grab my move brush and maybe let me turn my symmetry on. I wouldn't mind if it was tapered a little bit, like it was a little more wide towards the, let's solo this for a second, a little more wide towards the end, and then maybe it goes a little more like this inside, right? Totally up to you. And it feels like something's going on here. Maybe I can inflate this area here a little more together and smooth this out. All right. And still, I'm still not liking this line here for some reason. Let me grab something like the Damien standard, and let me just see if I can. I'm gonna click, hold on the shift key, go to the center, and just release. And then I'm gonna hold on the shift key to smooth this out. And now you can see I have more of a line in there. This is what I wanted. Okay. I'm gonna hold on the Alt key, click on the head to select it, grab my move brush, and again, make sure you're in active symmetry. And what we can do is we can just push this whole thing back more, just so we have a little more room for the tongue and maybe the teeth, right? And I have to be careful because I'm starting to break. Let me go back actually. I'm starting to break the top. I don't, oops, I don't want to do that. So what I could do is I can hold on, let's do this. I'm gonna solo this, hold on the control key, and I wanna make a selection of the part that I want to mess around with. So all of this could go back a little more, right? Okay. Now let's do control and click to smooth this. I mean flip it, and do control and click to smooth this a couple times. And now I can just simply grab my move, make it very large, and just push this back. And as I'm pushing it back, you can see I'm not messing up my edges, right? Which is exactly what I wanted. There's a little strangeness that is happening here, but that's okay. I'm going to control and drag to get rid of my mask. Hold down the shift key and just go through and smooth this. So that's one way of doing it. My res is kind of high, so it's not smoothing very easily. But honestly, I think this will work because this is where the teeth are going to be. All right, let's jump out of solo. Now we can see we have a little more room for the tongue. I like that. Let's go ahead and drop in a couple teeth. Go to subtool, insert. Let's insert a box. That's going to be our tooth. Maybe put it in front, make it a little smaller, maybe change the shape of it, make it a little bit longer. And you know, one thing that I like to do is go to taper. We could just taper it a little more so it feels like a cartoony tooth. Why not, right? I think that works. And what else can we do? We can chip it, right? We can use the knife tool to chip the tooth. Or if I leave it on 128 and Dynamesh it, you can see that it's actually pretty good. So I can just polish this and get rid of those sharp edges if I wanted to, right? Stylistically, it's totally up to you. It's your choice of how you want to, if you want to keep the tooth sharp or not. You know, if you do, you can always reverse this and see what we like better. Maybe I like this actually, maybe the sharp one is a little bit better. It's fun to try a few different things. All right, so let me just go to settings, accept, scale this in, and let's just put it into position, right? So let's do the top ones first. I'm gonna hold down the shift key, rotate it 180, and let's just maybe angle it a little bit and put it into position. So, you know, we could decide if we want to build gums for this character, but I think that's probably gonna be a little too much. I can angle this, put it like right here. I would love another one, right? So let me just duplicate this and flip it over. Now I have two. And we can decide if we like that. If I want to adjust them, I can adjust them in a minute. But I'm trying to figure out if I want more teeth or just keep two. And one thing I could do, of course, is grab both of them, merge them together, right? And now I can grab my move brush, turn my symmetry on. And if I wanted to, I could adjust them any way I wish, right? Maybe I want them to be, you know, mess them up a little bit if you wanted to. I can turn off the symmetry too and just break the actual symmetry. Now keep in mind, if you wanted to move them independently, you could always do auto groups. And then you can use the normal move brush and just turn on mask by polygroups. And that's going to allow you to control one without the other, right? Because they are different polygroups now, right? That's what that is. You can see, I know they're keep being similar colors, but you can see this one is orange and red, right? And then if you don't have that, if you don't do auto groups, you could just use move topology, and usually it does the same thing, right? You could do one at a time. So again, in ZBrush, you could do things a million different ways usually, but essentially I'm just trying to break the symmetry a little. So it doesn't look exactly the same. And I think that is what I like, so that's fine. Let's see, what else can we do? So another thing that could be helpful is maybe adding some, you know, couple cute little hairs, right? If you wanted to add some hairs, we could use a brush, like a hair brush, or let's see if we can just use the snake hook. With the active symmetry turned on, and we just have to decide like where we want to pull out maybe some you know, some things that look like we'd probably need whiskers, right? Whiskers will come from like here, but if you wanted to, you could also create a couple little cute things. I don't know if it starts to look like a rabbit or a you know, a cat or something, but very quickly, if you wanted to, right, you could add like little tiny things to break that shape up. It's totally up to you. You can decide if you want to do eyelashes. Another thing that you could do is, for example, Let's grab our pinch. And if you wanted to, you could create a little more of a kind of a sharp stylistic nose like this. A lot of times that's pretty cool, right? You could do that. And you can see how it's distorting the bottom a little bit, so it's up to you if you like that. I can do Control D to subdivide this a little more. I can do the same thing here, right, too. I can pinch some of this to create maybe a little more sharpness. You know, kind of a stylistic choice, right? But usually if you just do a little bit, you don't want to overdo it. It's going to create kind of a nice contrast between soft shapes and something that's sharp. Let's give them a few hairs, right? To do that, I'm going to, again, you can grab this UI, but there's many different hair brushes. I'm just gonna, let me try to figure out which one I'm gonna use this hair tube DE. I think that will be perfect. Let me just grab something like, let's do like a multi-track A. And let me just see if I can just literally just do something like this. I'm gonna turn my symmetry off, and I'm actually not liking that. Let me see, simple A. No, I definitely want to do multiple. Let's try multiple B. Yeah, this is what I like. Okay, so now one problem with this obviously is it's you know, needs to be flipped, right? How do we flip it? Well, we can go to stroke. You could go to curve modifiers, and in here you see the fall off is going skinny to big. I need to flip this. How do I flip this the other way? Well, I could just do a flip, right? So flip horizontal will turn this the other way, right? Common sense. So that means if I start dragging this, it's going to give me what I'm looking for, right? And now I could just do, you know, something like that. I'm not loving how this is kind of lending itself, so I can maybe move it around a little more, right? And the cool thing about this brush is that it comes with multiple hairs automatically. So one thing I could do is I can turn dynamic on, and that's going to make it, you know, the preview a little smoother, right? I can also change the smoothness of this. And the cool thing about this brush, again, if you turn the polyframe on and do auto groups, you can see that there's actually a few different hairs within one bunch. So that means we can quickly create an illusion of complexity. So if I get rid of this curve by tapping on the surface, you can see I kind of baked it in. And now if I grab my move brush, turn my mask by polygroups on, and start moving these around, you can see how very quickly I'm going to create something that looks somewhat complex, right? Because there's so many different shapes. And I can make things longer or shorter, right? Let me jump out of the dynamic. It's kind of slowing me down here. But very quickly I can just do this and move it around. And if I wanted to change this here, I can just, let's say I want to move all of them together. Well, I can just dial this back down, and now I can control them all at once, right? So lots of different, you know, ways of doing this, but that's going to quickly give you something that looks a lot like hair, right? I can also, of course, go to split and do split on mask to put that on its own layer. Do Control D a couple times to make it, you know, a little more smooth. It's only at 50,000. And again, if I turn the polygroups on, I have this full control over these beautiful strings that I could do anything I want with it, right? And then of course I could duplicate this, and let's say I want more of them, right? Let's go to move them, let's move them back, move them this way, maybe rotate them. And now it really looks like something very, you know, somewhat complex, even though it's totally an illusion. But I think that is pretty cool. And now if I can go back to move, I can move these even more and make them a little more custom, right? And you can see in a matter of seconds I created something that totally works for this character. All right, to make some final adjustments, I wouldn't mind if these eyes were a little closer together, I think. Maybe that's a little too much. So something like that I think is pretty cool. And you can see it looks a lot like a mouse, right? We can just keep going and make the body for this character and big feet and all that. It's up to you. If you are enjoying this video, please let me know. I would love to keep going, but I really don't want to make it super long, right? I want to make sure that this is indeed useful and you know, someone's following and having fun. And again, if you like this, let me know, and we'll build the rest of the character, and we can even poly paint him and throw him into, you know, we can throw him into like Blender and see how he looks. If you wanted to render this, let's just do a quick BPR. And another thing we can do is go to render. Let's turn the global shadows down just a little more so we could see through some of these dark shadows here, right? So if I do BPR, you can see it's a little bit lighter. And then if you want to punch the sharpness of this just for the sake of BPR in Blender, I mean in ZBrush, you could go to render and then go to filters, and then I like to use this F3 with a little radius, and you can see how it just creates this nice, kind of a nice punch. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, let me know if you want me to keep going, or, you know, I don't know how many people are interested in kind of cartoony stuff. I enjoyed very much. I think that, you know, understanding simple shapes is just as important as creating super realistic characters, because it's kind of the same skill of understanding what's too much, what's too little. You know, it's all of these give you great practice on controlling your skill and just figuring out, you know, where you might be weak as an artist or where you're super strong. All right. So again, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in our next video.